Billy's been bullied. Walt Disney was supposed to be a fun thing for children, but for Billy, it was just the opposite. It all started when Billy was born. When he was born, his ears stuck out of his head. Normal children's ears laid back against their head, but Billy's ears stuck out like the ears on Mr. Potato Head. As Billy was growing up, his looks didn't bother him because no one had a problem with the way he looked. Most of the children that he went to school with didn't even realize that he was different, and he was treated just like every other child at school. That was until he got into the second grade. During this time, the other children started to notice that Billy looked different than the rest of them. It was then that they started to call him names and laugh at him every day. The children would even say mean things to him like, "Hey, Dumbo, why don't you flap your ears and fly away?" For those of you who don't know who Dumbo is, he was the main character in an animated film produced by Walt Disney Productions. Dumbo wasn't his real name. His real name was Jumbo Jr., but the other elephants called him Dumbo, as in dumb. He was also picked on because of his big ears, and he could use his ears as wings to fly away. Now you can see why Walt Disney was not so fun to Billy. Every time he saw a Walt Disney show, it reminded him of all the bullying that he was going through, just because he didn't look normal. Even when he was at home, where he was supposed to feel happy, he didn't because of the memories of being picked on while at school. Billy would begin to feel sad all over again. Billy tried to forget about all the bullying, but every day at school, Billy's classmates continued to remind him how he was different. Every day, Billy would run home from school crying and upset because he looked different than the rest of the children. When he got home, he would cry to his parents and would ask if they would allow him to stay home and not go to school. Billy's parents felt bad for him, but they knew it was important for him to go to school so he could grow up to be a police officer, which is what he always dreamed about becoming. Not to mention, children had to attend school because it was the law. Billy's parents tried talking to the teacher and principal to see if they could help. They talked with all the students in Billy's class and told them to stop from bullying Billy. That worked for a little while, until the children weren't around the teacher or principal. Then they would go back to bullying Billy again. This continued over and over, but nothing seemed to stop it completely. Billy's parents even tried talking to the children who were bullying him along with their parents. And just like at school, when an adult wasn't around, the bullying would continue. The constant bullying was daily, and Billy's parents kept feeling bad for him. They wished that there was something they could do to get the bullying to stop, so Billy could feel normal again. They finally realized that Billy wasn't going to get treated like the rest of the children until something changed. That was when they decided to talk to a doctor, just to see if there was anything he could do to make him look like everyone else. The doctor said that he could help. He told Billy's parents that Billy could have surgery on his ears. He said he would remove part of the back of Billy's ears, and when he was done, his ears would lay back against his head, and he would look normal like everyone else. Billy's parents thought about this surgery for a long time. The surgery was going to be expensive for Billy's family, and it was going to happen far away from where Billy and his family lived. That meant that Billy and his parents would have to stay down by the hospital while Billy was recovering from the operation, which would cost more money. Luckily, they had a place to stay. Billy's aunt lived near the hospital, and his parents could stay with her. But it was still going to be hard for Billy and his parents because Billy wasn't the only child in his family. He had 3 other siblings as well. One brother, who was a year older than him, another brother, who was 3 years younger than him, and a brother who was just an infant. His parents had to decide on if the entire family would go to the hospital or if they would allow Billy's siblings to stay at home. It was decided they would stay at home with Grandma and Grandpa while Billy and his parents went to the hospital. Billy was very nervous about the surgery, but excited at the same time. He was nervous because he never had surgery before and was worried it would hurt. Plus, he wondered if his ears would still look different than everyone else. He had high hopes that when this was all done, he would look normal and all the bullying would stop. It was now time to have the surgery. The only thing Billy could remember was being in his room with his nurses as they prepared him for the operation. When Billy was done with his surgery, he was very excited about what his ears would look like, but it was going to be a little bit longer before Billy would be able to see them, because now he had a bandage around his head to protect the surgery. The bandage was needed, but it gave Billy some unsecured feelings. He started thinking that if the children would laugh at him for having big ears, how would they treat him for having a bandage around his head? For weeks he was nervous, and for weeks he wouldn't go to school. Every day that he missed school was another day that he wasn't learning, and it was starting to set him back. Finally, the day came to take the bandage off. All Billy could do was think about what if the surgery didn't work, and now his ears look worse than before. It was very hard for Billy to think about. When the bandage was taken off, Billy looked in the mirror and he saw a totally different person. Billy began to cry. This time, the tears were not hurtful tears, but happy tears. Billy now looked normal. He was excited to go back to school and show everyone. But when he and his parents were driving home, Billy began to think. He wondered why he had to change his appearance just to fit in. He began to realize that his ears weren't the problem and that it was the bullies who had the problem. Billy became sad again. This time because he made his parents change who he was. He realized that bullies were the ones who needed to change. He also realized that he was always happy, and changing his looks didn't make him any happier. So Billy figured that helping others change how they treat others would be easier than changing who you are. So that is what he set out to do. Billy eventually became everything he wanted to be: a police officer, an officer in the United States Navy, and a basketball coach. He was successful in all three as well. While working as a police officer, Billy taught thousands of children about bullying. He received many awards for his work with children. He also became a leader that everyone wanted to work for in the Navy, and he became a championship coach in basketball. All because he worked on being himself and not what others wanted him to be.